Hey everyone, Ben here. Now a few weeks ago I asked you to give me a star rating from 1 to 5 for 7 of the major sim racing titles available in 2024 and to let me know why you rated the sim as you did in the comments. Now I've brought the results of these ratings together and using a compound average, don't at me, landed at a final score for each sim. So, how did the rankings play out and what does it tell us about the state of sim racing in 2024? Let's find out. Okay, first up we have rFactor 2, which has an average score of 2.5 stars. Now if I'm honest, I did fear that this could be an even lower rating. The title has seen updates dry up somewhat of late, following a renaissance of regular content drops during 2022 and 2023. I was really excited by the prospect of their new ranked online racing system, Race Control, which emerged out of beta in October last year. But in reality, I found the racing options relatively limited and the amount of time that it took to get out of rookies was just too long for me, given the amount of time I get to race in a week. Add in a lack of single player options and a confusing UI and it seems that you, like me, have become a bit frustrated with the title. But let's not forget that there is fun to be had here, with excellent physics and force feedback, a range of exciting content, and if you can find yourself in a private league, lots of fun racing to be had too. Whether this sim ranks higher in 2025 will definitely depend on if regular updates return, or if ultimately we've already seen the best that rFactor 2 has to offer. Next up we have Raceroom Racing Experience. It also comes in with an average viewer rating of 2.5 stars, and like rFactor 2, it's really suffered in recent years with the stop-start nature of updates and some persistent issues that the developers have seemingly struggled to overcome. For me, as my interest is primarily in ranked online racing, the drop off in player numbers on the weekly servers means that I rarely get a chance to race on the sim, and let's not forget that this actually used to be my number one sim. That sentiment was echoed by some of you in the comments, and it's a shame because the underlying driving physics of Raceroom have always been very solid. Last year there were promises of a renewed schedule for content drops and updates to the driving itself, and while some of those initial time slots were missed, 3 new BMWs have just launched as part of a new content drop, and there's renewed hope that further improvements will follow in 2024 and beyond. But ultimately, time will tell. Now for a newcomer, Le Mans Ultimate. And as a disclaimer, straight away, I actually haven't raced this title, so I'm taking your word for it here. The average viewer rating was 3 stars, but of course, as some of you mentioned, so early in a title's early access release, it's inevitably difficult to give a definitive rating. For some, the title will feel as if it has been rushed out with too little content and limited gameplay options, while for others, it will represent a positive start with plenty of potential. In particular, it seems most players have given a thumbs up to the core driving experience, but equally, it seems that there's quite a few bugs to iron out. For what it's worth, the reason I've yet to buy it is because I just don't yet have the faith that the ambitions for the title will be realised and development will ultimately get finished. It's a bit of a story for the whole of the sim racing genre, with titles permanently in development and forever unfinished, but I just find that there isn't enough reason yet for me to jump in. Fantastic YouTubing sim racer Chris Rogers has bought the title though, and he generously provided me with the footage that you're looking at now. His races highlight that there is potential here, and once you're done with this video, if you want to see LMU in action, I suggest you go and check them out. Assetto Corsa Competizione is up next with a rating of 3.5 stars. Unlike the previous titles we've covered so far, ACC has been consistently supported post-release, with new content and physics updates, and it's probably approaching something close to the complete package for what it sets out to do. The underlying simulation has long been held to be strong, even if it does come with its quirks, especially when it comes to things like collision physics. Poorly optimised performance has been an issue, and for many on mid-powered systems, the graphics can quickly go from impressive to glitchy, and probably the less said about VR, the better. The sound design though is fantastic. Although it's frustrating to have to rely on a third-party platform, it's undeniable that low-fuel motorsport has been an absolute game-changer for online racing in ACC and its wider popularity amongst sim racers. But what did you guys think? Well, 3.5 stars overall is a very respectable score, but there was a real mixed bag of comments, with some praising the simulation as one of the best out there, while others insisted it's not actually that fun to race. So ACC as a title might be reaching the end of its life, but it does continue to offer a really solid racing experience, even if it's dividing opinion somewhat. Also dividing opinion and also landing with 3.5 stars is Automobilista 2. For some reason, this title can be a real lightning rod for disagreement and heated opinions in the sim racing community. But I think everyone can agree that the sim has improved since its early access launch, with Razer Studios investing time in successive updates to the core handling and physics, and at the time of publishing, the version 1.6 milestone update, which is on the horizon, promises yet more improvements. Other big positives are the wide range of distinctive cars and tracks to choose from, the rich historic racing content, the wonderful graphics, dynamic weather system, and the fact that it performs pretty well on relatively modest systems, including in VR. But as your comments highlighted, there are still some pretty big gaps here too. The handling has improved, but it remains a work in progress. And while I've covered off my concerns about the AI in previous videos, you also pointed out that the lack of a proper ranked multiplayer platform for AMS2 really hurts the title and removes a further reason to play. There's still a chance that AMS2 capitalises on its potential and the hard work and investment put into the title so far and becomes a truly standout title in 2024 and 2025. My fingers are certainly crossed that it does. Now it's time to turn to the iconic Assetto Corsa, which in 2024 continues to offer some amazing sim racing experiences and unsurprisingly is hugely popular amongst players, with an average star rating of 4 out of 5. This is in no small part due to the incredibly vibrant modding scene, which has truly turned Assetto Corsa into the ultimate sim racing sandbox adventure. If you can dream a car and track combination, or almost any driving scenario come to think of it, then there probably is a mod available to let you experience it in AC. Many feel the physics have been surpassed by other more modern sims these days, and in the comments, some of you found it difficult to rate the game beyond being a hot lap simulator. Others though disagreed. With sequel Assetto Corsa Evo still slated for release in 2024, it's going to be fascinating to see how it lines up against the classic original. And finally, we come to the sim that ranked highest in our star rating poll, iRacing, with an average rating of 4.5 stars. Now I can already hear some of the groans that it's only because my channel is now focused on iRacing, and therefore the results are biased. Well look, they may well be to a degree. This isn't a scientific poll, it's only a bit of fun. But I think you'd be pretty churlish to not recognise that iRacing has had a fantastic 12 months. The biggest plus point reflected in your comments is a frankly enormous online racing ecosystem that just works, providing competitive online racing for all skill levels at virtually any time of day. This puts it in sharp contrast to many of the other sims on this list. And yes, iRacing continues to receive updates, it's continuously in development, but the core systems here are very, very reliable. The new wet weather system has also clearly impressed, and although I imagine there will be further updates and improvements to come, the physics have improved in recent years too. Some will quite understandably never get past the underlying commercial and sales model of having a subscription and paid for content together, and that's fair enough. But for those of you who do play, I'd wager there's never been a better time to be an iRacer, and that's really why it scores so highly. But the reality is everyone is ultimately looking for something slightly different and personal to them from their sim racing experience, and so will likely have their own go-to title. I'd love to hear about yours in the comments, and in the meantime, if you want to see just how much fun you can have in ranked racing on iRacing, then check out the video on screen now. It's a belter.